Hey everyone, my name's FlyMyDog4. I'm a maxed endgame Ironman with a main focus on pet hunting, and I figured I'd just do a bit of a ramble and bank showcase today because it's been quite a big year of updates. So, I suppose the very first thing that I'm going to talk about is obviously sailing because that's the hottest topic right now. Starting from the very beginning, which were just the original talks of even adding sailing into the game. So I'm not gonna lie, I was very heavily against the idea of them adding it. Did not want this to come into the game at all. Went out of my way to vote no on the polls, even though I very rarely vote in things. And this is not because I thought that sailing itself would be terrible. I just didn't want a new skill added to the game because it's obviously such a divisive and impactful area of the game that if the skill was bad, it would most certainly be the death of old school RuneScape. And I still stand by that, even though my thoughts on sailing have actually changed. So eventually, it passed the poll, and I was pretty sour about that at first, and I was hoping every week that they'd put out some kind of tweet and say, yeah, we've decided to scrap sailing, very much in the same way that they scrapped the ruinous powers due to very overwhelming amount of negative feedback. I was hoping that that would happen to sailing, but as it dawned closer and closer, I kind of realized that, you know what, no matter what I think, this skill is going to be coming into the game, and whether or not I prefer it, I'm at least going to have to give it a try. So I never became optimistic about the skill, but I suppose you can say that I came to terms with the fact that it was being added to the game. So with that in mind, like most people, I booked a couple of days off work just so I could purely sit here and train sailing. I remember it being release night. It's always at night time here in Australia, and just going to World 569 Port Sarim. It was kind of cool to see several hundred people all just crowding around the Port Sarim docks. So in that aspect, like this is when I started to realize, okay, maybe this skill won't actually be too bad. So suppose that my thoughts, sort of started shifting before I even started training this skill. And we all just sat there just spamming shit in the chat, waiting for the exact update timer to go down. I remember distinctly when they enabled sailing because it was, for anyone who wasn't there, it was kind of this weird thing where they added sailing to the game in the update, but then they brought the game back up and they were essentially going to do like a hot fix or hot deployment so that they could add sailing into the game while everyone was logged in without having to, restart the clients and everything like that. And I think that I think that's the first time they've ever done something like this for a major release, and I thought it was pretty cool because it got rid of a lot of those login issues that people have with new updates. So yeah, I thought that was nice. But yeah, just sitting around waiting for this timer to go down, and everybody just hitting level 1 sailing, and yeah, it almost deafened me because you can imagine several hundred people and fireworks going off. It's really fucking loud. But yeah, I wasted no time. I hopped right in there and did the first quest, and got on my raft and spent a lot of time just fucking around and trying to figure everything out because I didn't play the beta. I don't really like playing betas or getting an idea about something before it actually comes into the game, just due to the fact that it could change or iterate so wildly. So yeah, I was essentially just going in blind, and I had to say, like, all of my expectations about sailing initially were just blown out of the water. No pun intended. I was pretty impressed with the boat movements overall, even though I was just using a shitty little raft sailing from Port Sarim to Pandemonium, carrying a silly box. And I was impressed. So my first thoughts about sailing said, well, okay, they actually did a pretty good job with this, but what else does this skill have to offer? Um, so, I did a few port tasks, did all the quests that I could till level 30. Unfortunately, I was not aware of the 10k experience bug, so I didn't get to abuse that on day one, but, you know, I guess in a way, I'm glad I didn't, because it gave me a bit of time to figure out how the boat controls worked and figure out what the fuck was going on in general, because it was very overwhelming because this was a whole new area of RuneScape that nobody had ever seen before. So yeah, I just want to give props to Jagex for this release. It was handled flawlessly, and I've seen countless, opinions from people on Twitter and stuff like that who were also very much against the idea, who ended up changing their minds about it. So, bravo, Jagex. Now, I just want to say that this does not change my stance on them adding a new skill, and I'm probably always going to vote no because those feelings haven't changed. Like, just because sailing was a success doesn't mean that the next skill will be, and I'd rather that Jagex didn't take the risk there. So that's my stance on that. So yeah, anyway, doing the port tasks and everything, like, I think it's no secret that they're not very fun. So after you've done your first few, it's not really that exciting anymore, and you realize you're just going around to various different points for essentially no reason. Tried a bit of blue level salvaging. That fucking sucks. Don't even bother doing that till a higher level. But with the update yesterday, salvaging might just be dead, so you never know. But anyway, I ended up doing the courier tasks till level 30, like most people, just doing any quests that I could in between. And then I was very excited to try the Barracuda trials because I figured if there was anything up this, with this skill that would be up my alley, it was probably going to be the trials. So, had a crack at that, the Temperos course, and I guess this is kind of the first time when you really test the limits of your boat's movement capabilities. It was definitely very frustrating to get the hang of it and just sort of understand, how you should be handling the boat and slowing down and stuff like that. Well, I mean, actually, at this time, I mean, nobody was really using the slow down tech. We were all just trying to go the same speed and then just madly spam click to make the big turns, or at least I was, and everybody that I knew as well. In hindsight, obviously, that's really dumb, and you do want to slow down for big turns, but nobody knew what they were doing. But that was all just the fun of this skill, to be honest. For the Temper Tantrum Marlin course, yeah, that one, I don't know. It did get a bit old after a little bit, but I just kind of pressed on till level 50 because I wanted to build the sloop so I could have a go at salvaging with 2 hooks and a crewmate. And this was still very early days, so people didn't know metas or anything like that, or about the double salvaging spots, or at least I didn't know about this kind of stuff. But yeah, either way, headed out to the large shipwrecks and engaged with some of that. And I thought, this is great. This is like I really liked salvaging. It's the way that I did it was what I would call the semi AFK method, and this is all I ever did to 99, which is basically where I'm manning one hook, my other guy is manning the other one, and it's essentially just me on the hook, just putting my shit in the cargo storage, and then sorting it, and then I would assign a second crewmate to man the hook for me once I build up the cargo hold, which I think you unlock at 55. So yeah. Now, at this point, I was aware of bounty tasks, and I knew there were some other things like deep sea trawling and stuff like that. Both seemed pretty far away from me, but even before we knew about those things, I wasn't too interested in giving them a go because I figured, I was probably too low level to have any fun with doing it. obviously, I think probably the biggest issue with sailing now is the ship combat, and that fucking sucks. So, look, I'm glad I didn't try to engage with it at an early level because it just would have sucked anyway. Now, I know that Jagex, they are planning to fix ship combat, so I'll give them a pass, but it's very clearly, half baked, and that's, just about all I'll say on that. But anyway, I eventually unlocked the Jubbly Jive course. Now, this one, I mean, I'm gonna go with the majority here. This course also fucking sucks. I don't like the mechanics of it. I don't like the fact that when you slam into a wall, well, instead of just slamming into a wall, it essentially just slows you the fuck down, right? So it just feels really bad. I didn't like the mechanic of having to throw the stupid toad, and half the time it didn't even register my inputs, and I'd realized when I got to the end of the course and I still had an extra one. It was infuriating. So I don't know. I really did not like the Jubbly course, but by this point, people had started to unlock the Gwyneth Glide, and I saw glimpses of that on people's streams. So honestly, I just sat there and I grinded out Jubbly because I knew that eventually, at level 72, I would unlock the Gwyneth Glide. Still did a bit of salvaging between, around these times, but in my opinion, salvaging doesn't really get good until you hit at least level 80 for the Fremi shipwrecks, but more on that a bit later. But anyway, so I grinded out Jubbly, still had no interest in doing any sort of ocean PVM tasks because by this point, more people had given it a go and, basically said that the cannons were essentially very bad damage, and also your character does reduce damage. And I just think that's one of the most fucking annoying mechanics ever. It's the thing that I hate the most about bosses like Whisperer, doing the special attack and stuff like that. Just any sort of flat damage reduction mechanics are just very annoying. So, yeah, that in itself is already enough to turn me off it, and just the actual mechanics of how it works. So whatever. I was fine just sending Barracuda trials, even though I wasn't having that much fun at Jubbly. So I stuck that out, eventually got to level 72, and Gwyneth Glide, I just thought that course was so amazing, especially when compared to the shitty Jubbly Jive, which, in case it wasn't obvious, I may not like that course very much. So anyway, Gwyneth Glide was really fun. Obviously a bit challenging to learn at first because at the time when I started learning it, people still weren't really, using the slow down tech to make turning easier. So, like, I could feel my wrists starting to give way on some of the, like on the shark course when you have to do that awkward zigzag turn. Obviously, you would not just spam click that today with the same, like going the same speed. So it would be a lot easier on the wrist, but I was just spam clicking the ever loving shit out of it. And, that was a bit rough. But yeah, overall, Gwyneth Glide, really good course. I guess learning the Marlin also was a little bit challenging for me too, but another really good thing about Gwyneth Glide is all of the previous courses that you learn, like the swordfish and the shark, they do kind of train you for Marlin, so it's not like I was learning something brand new. It was more so like, I can just build on the foundations of what I already know. So that I really liked. And I thought it was really fun just sort of beating the time for the first time on that course. Especially, obviously without a rosewood hole because I didn't have the ability to use one or anything like that. Good times. So, eventually I just, I just kept grinding trials, or during work I would just do shipwreck salvaging, still just doing the semi-AFK method that I was talking about before, and I was honestly really surprised at how good the XP rates were with salvaging, and in hindsight, obviously, Jagex wasn't too happy about that either. But I was getting over 100k just doing the 100k per hour doing the semi-active salvaging at Fremi shipwrecks, and I was like, damn, if I'm getting this XP here, it must be even better when I unlock the merchant shipwrecks. And spoilers, it was. But anyway, with a mix of those things, I realized, well, I might actually be able to max this skill pretty fast, even though I'm only able to, sort of send trials when I'm not working because they obviously require a bit too much concentration. And yeah, I think that's pretty much all I did to 99. I just did a mixture of salvaging at Fremi and then eventually merchant shipwrecks and the Gwyneth Glide course. So yeah, so I guess some of the main things, or some of the main takeaways I have for sailing, and keep in mind this is mainly just my experience of maxing it within the first 2 weeks of sailing before the egregious nerfs that Jagex dropped the day afterwards. So I guess to summarize, Jubbly course fucking sucks. Ocean PVM is terrible in its current state, but I know that they'll be able to fix that, so I'll give them a break. Frost dragons and getting the dragon nails to make a rosewood hole. God, that I'm not exaggerating when I say this, but just doing the frost dragon grinds to get 340 nails to make a rosewood hole and the rosewood sails, that was probably the most stressful day that I've ever had on RuneScape in my life. And that is nothing to do with the difficulty of killing a frost dragon. It's obviously just a click monster sort of minion, but Jesus Christ, it was so so to put it into perspective for anyone who wasn't doing them at the time, it was basically just an area with on every world single way combat with 6 frost dragons only, respawn timer of like 16 seconds or something like that, which they did thankfully change. But anyway, basically, as you can imagine, these were dropping the dragon metal sheets, which were going for God, probably over 20 mil at the time. And there were obviously also a lot of ironmen who were starting to get the 87 sailing requirement to dock at the island. So it was a mixture of just ironmen desperately trying to get their nails and just normies who were trying to, make a bit of extra money. Fair enough, because these things were in very high demand. And that made it extremely difficult to find a world. And, you know, you could argue that competing for resources is just a part of the MMO and that's just how it should be, but I do understand it's part of the game, but it is not a part of the game that I like. And holy fuck, it was so stressful, constantly worried about getting crashed by somebody. And I even, for the first time in my life, I ordered DoorDash for lunch because I didn't want to go AFK to go and cook something because I would lose my spot at Frost Dragons. So yeah, it was bad, and I'm very glad that I got all of the sheets and nails that I needed within about 1300 KC. And yes, I did break some of the sheets down. I might regret that in hindsight, but at the time it seemed very worth it to be done with Frost Dragons, and I was happy. Now, obviously, at this time, Jagex has made significant improvements to Frost Dragons and added more viable alternatives to get Dragon Metal Sheets, so that complaint is one of the past and something that people should not have to suffer with anymore, at least not in the same fashion. So yeah, that was probably the worst part. I did do a little bit of ocean PVM. I went and killed some albatrosses for their feathers so I could make the gale catcher. If anyone went dry on this, then I am very sorry, but I finished 5 feathers in 47 KC. Probably my biggest sailing spoon to date, but I'm just very glad that I did. Honestly, spent more time trying to kit out my ship than anything else. Than doing the actual PVM, but yeah, that was not fun. And like I said, I won't go too hard on Jagex for Ocean PVM being a complete pile of dog shit, because it's at least something that they can fix or try to fix. So I will reserve all judgments. Well, I will reserve my full judgments until they actually make some kind of massive change. But that shit definitely needs an overhaul. So I'm sure they're working very hard on it. That's fine. Now, I suppose that I was pretty happy with sailing overall. Obviously, a lot happier than I thought I would be. But in hindsight, you know, I suppose even with hindsight, I still would have voted no for this skill for the reasons I mentioned before. It's just I just don't ever see it worth them adding something as impactful as a new skill, because there is always a chance that they could get it completely wrong. And if you get a mini game wrong, then fine, people don't have to engage with it. You get a skill wrong, then I don't give a fuck what the average redditor says. If you have a maxscape and a new skill comes out, you basically force to max again. Well, that's at least how I feel anyway. So that is why I think it would be the death of the game if it was bad. But is what it is. Now, obviously, as I've mentioned, they did release an update yesterday, which significantly hurt the XP rates from a lot of things, well, almost everything in sailing except courier tasks. I'm not going to spend time rambling about that because I'm 99 now. It doesn't actually affect me, and there's plenty of other people who are complaining about that on just about every platform that exists, so somebody else can certainly do that for me. But anyway, I guess that's my little ramble about sailing, and of course it was quite incoherent and all over the place, but if there are any takeaways, it was better than I expected. Probably still wouldn't have voted for it to come into the game, but I think Jagex did a pretty good job overall. And obviously the things they can fix, well, they can fix. I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with the skill. I believe all of the problems can be fixed, so that's a much better place than I thought it would be. So that's the ramble about sailing done. Now, I suppose I'll move into the bank showcase now, and then just do a bit of a collection log and a bit of a ramble about some of my achievements after that. So here we go. Here is the bank. So as you can immediately see from the first tab, it's just a bit of my cash, crystal crown, got one of each combined elemental staff. I honestly don't know why I've laid it out like this, and then just any clue related stuff. Anybody who knows me well enough knows that I only do master clues, so that's why I've got 5 of each of these. I don't intend to ever grind easy, mediums, hards, or elites or anything like that. They just all get traded to Watson, and I just do the master clues when I feel like it. I've already got the bloodhounds, so it's not like I'm trying to max up these or anything like that. So I just enjoy doing master clues. So that is the first tab. Moving on to the second one. This is my sort of teleportation and runes tab, as you can see. So it's basically got most of the important runes here. Just skill capes and teleports and stuff like that, which I think are important. Same here, just all of the achievement diary stuff that actually teleports you somewhere. I don't care about adding the other pieces like the Varrock body and stuff that goes in a different tab. Again, just all just miscellaneous teleport items here for all different kinds of stuff. Store most of my scrolls in the book, but just for things which I might need to use regularly, I'll just sort of keep the individual tabs here. So that's what those 4 are doing. A few random telly tabs, and bones to peaches and shit like that. And I just got all my games necklaces here. These are obviously just for killing co-op. And just got the new Sailor's Amulet as well, which is a goated telly, by the way. Yeah, I just haven't really found a new place for it. Don't really care to. Um, Now, before we go to the next tab, I mean, I guess if you're a big nut for bank organization, this bank is not exactly all organized the best, so just avert your eyes if this offends you or anything like that. So this tab, I would consider this to be my just random supplies and skilling tab, I suppose. You can see I've just got all of the herbs laid out here, just mostly in order of what level you need to like clean them and shit like that. And then I've just got the herb sack and the only two sort of collection logs that I'll ever unlock from Mixology right here, the Alchemist Amulet and the prescription goggles. Got all of my bird nests here, a little bit of crystal dust, some amylase, vials of blood. Can you tell that I enjoy Tob? And just all these other secondaries here, which are somewhat organized but also not. I've got, I think, just about every kind of log here. Obviously some of the new sailing ones here, kind of cool. Gem bag, all the gems. Guess I've got quite a lot of dragon stones for whatever reason, probably just from doing TOA in the past. I've got the ores and all the bars here. As you can probably tell by now, like I'm not one of those people who cares about turning all of my ores into bars and smelting them and turning them into alks. Like I'm quite happy to just keep big stacks of everything in here. Am I ever gonna do anything with these rune bars? Probably fucking not. Maybe we'll get over 10k someday. Well, who knows? Again, just a few miscellaneous items in here. Don't know where I have these from, but maybe one day I'll have a green stack of pure essence. Kinda cool. Just a bunch of raw fish here from just various PVM and stuff like that. Like I remember a few months ago they released that update where they were like, yeah, we're gonna remove cooked manta rays from the drop tables of things like Zora and Vorkath and just replace them with raw sharks to try and eliminate the food problem. I don't really know what they were getting at there because it seems like the best way to get fish out is still just to do PVM. Like, do you think I sat there and fished all 10,000s of these in the fucking fishing guild? Absolutely not. So, whatever. A lot of raw Karambans from the Heron Pet grind, which I did eventually get, but that's a nice AFK one, so that's why I've got so many of those. Just the fish barrel and tackle box, which I mean this item sucks as well. Like the fact that you could essentially just use it to save space in the bank, but it doesn't really it doesn't really have any practical use for an Ironman as far as I can see. Maybe for a UIM if you're only focused on fishing, but whatever. I'm not gonna have a whole ramble about how shit I think this item is. Got my infernal harpoon there for some reason. Just a few random crafting supplies. Like I don't care about getting arbitrary experience post 99 for these kinds of skills, so you're never going to catch me just sitting at the bank and blowing this glass or turning this into molten glass or processing these planks or whatever. I don't care about stuff like that. Various rings from birdhouses and miscellaneous things over the years. For the sake of the people with OCD, I will move this around so that they're in the right order. There you go. Well, just got some random hunting supplies here. Now this is probably where you can start to see a very big symptoms of how I basically play all the time during work, having 194,000 amethyst heads, having a lot more of those than headless arrows, and 28,000 dart tips. Now, if anybody here has ever mined amethyst, you know just how long this will take, and I would say this was like months of like, just days doing work, just sitting there at amethyst, you know, grinding away, getting the odd clue scroll, which I really like. That's cool. Um, and yeah, the rest of the stuff is just again some miscellaneous things. Um, Eclectic implings for when I need to get medium clues to give that shit to Watson. It's always nice to have those. Um, and just a few random hunter rumor items here. Some unenchanted diamond necklaces to make more P-necks, which I'll eventually get around to. And yeah, just some random leftover supplies from sailing and the dank hemp, of course. So that's pretty much all from the skilling and supplies tab. Moving on, this one here is the farming tab. So as you can see, I've got quite a lot of seeds, but I don't really do that many herb runs. So got 2,500 Raynars, 2.3k snaps and stuff like that. And just a few of the more expensive seeds in here, I suppose. I think that probably the most valuable thing in here is actually my stack of snake grass seeds. Because these go for 85 mil worth of. I mean, maybe something in here is worth more money, but yeah, as far as I know, this is probably the most expensive item in here. So yeah, kind of cool, but I might do the odd like snake grass run occasionally, but even then I'm not really starving for prayer pots. But yeah, that's pretty much just the seed tab. Not that exciting, so I don't do much farming anymore. Now, yeah, I guess the next one is probably the one that most people are waiting for, but this is the gear tab. Now, what you'll probably notice first of all is that, yeah, I do have a lot of dupes in my account. I have been wanting to kind of offload those just for the sake of cleanliness, but I don't know. I can't bring myself to do it, but I guess it'll probably happen eventually. So if you're someone that doesn't like dupes, then again, I'm sorry. But it's the standard, just got a kind of miscellaneous few items at the very top row here. I got one of each scythe. Well, technically I don't have the default scythe, but one of each hard mode top kitted scythe because that's kind of cool. I got the Soul Reaver axe, the Fang. Then I've just got all my Torva stuff here. One of each sort of predominant 4-tick weapon in this section here. One of each God Sword. I'm not going to count the Ancient God Sword because that's one of the items that I'm missing, but also I don't really care about getting one, and I don't know where the fuck I'd put it in my bank because it's all kind of focused around having the 4 God Swords here, so it's all them. I got the Oathblade, the Elder Mauls, the Claws, Rev Weapon, and then this is like all of my range gear, and then just all the important stuff here, all the main things I'd use. And then we've got the full ancestral, and then obviously just 2 full sets of it. I mean, I feel like that's something I should definitely get rid of just for the sake of cleanliness again, but just can't really pull the trigger there. I got my shadow, cursed, Ayak, all that kind of stuff, saying stuff. Now this one is a relatively new addition to the bank. I got this just a few months ago after committing to grinding a few co-op kills every day, and I don't usually stick to goals like that, but I did, and I'm really happy that I did. So this is, in terms of actual like PVM gear, I'd say that this and this are probably the happiest things that I've achieved this year. With the 3 harmonized nightmare staves, those are the only orbs that I have from Visani's, but I do quite like the boss, so even though, Eldritch and Volatile are basically useless, I'll probably end up going back there at various points just when I just want something to do. Got my Inquisitor stuff here. The old Primordial boots, rip. Couple of Noxious Hallies. Just random TD stuff here. Crystal, Lance, Swifty, couple of Kerases. Yeah. Then just a bunch of, again, just random shit down here. Got quite a decent Cannonball collection, and I don't think I've really manually made any, but I've just done an awful lot of Visanis and Corp and, just a few other bosses that drop them. And I only really use Cannonballs for tutorial skipping, and I use the Granite ones for Corp as well. So that's, I guess why I've got 30,000 of those. One of the other, probably the only relevant best in slot item that I'm missing is probably painfully obvious right here. I've done quite a lot of the DC2 bosses, and as you can see, I've had 5 masks and 5 skirts. So that's kind of depressing, but whatever. Moving on though, that's the gear tab, which I think is probably one of the more well organized ones in the bank. Now the next one is going to be my loot tab, and this one is, I guess you could say it starts off kind of neat, but it does become a bit messier. But as you can see, I've just got a few different kits here and stuff like that. Randomly got some dragon pickaxes and dragon axes here. Got my collections of purple sweets. Just various currencies and stuff like that. That's all that's around here. But anyway, on granite dust. Looks like a rake in his orbs. Now, I suppose I haven't really done that many clues in the grand scheme of things, so probably the most eye-catching part of this tab would be obviously my third age plate body and just my incredible spoonage with the gilded stuff here. Yeah, so that's that's all pretty cool to see. Don't consider myself a clogger, so I actually just appreciate having these items as items, like just its numbers on the collection logs, so I guess that's already nice. And then this is where this tab starts to get a bit messy, so I've started just, putting random dupes in there. You can have a look at it and let's go through a bit slowly and pause a little bit. But yeah, as you can see, there's just various different things from over the years that I just haven't bothered dropping. A lot of stuff is irrelevant, but some of it is actually relevant gear that I just couldn't be bothered finding a place for in my gear tabs, like the Dragon Hunter wand and stuff like that. Got a granite mole here, but it's whatever. Through some of the rings from DK's bosses, and my Echo boots actually have so many charges that I couldn't fit any more Echo crystals into them, so I've had to start storing those in the bank as well. Just all a bunch of useless rings and stuff like that are just spread around here. There's really not that much structure to it. Cool. So just a few scepters. This is sort of where I'd consider the alchemables to begin. So I guess, obviously there's a lot of, different dragon items. That's probably my most notable dragon item collection, 808 dragon plate legs. I've got a lot of different random rune shit. Rune kite shields are probably the biggest ones, and those all just come from the Fortis Colosseum. I have a shitload of javelin heads from random DC2 bosses as well, so I eventually just started picking those up and collecting them. I got almost 20,000 battle staves, and again, just a bunch of random orbs just from PVM. As you can see, the most prominent is the Earth Orb, which comes from Araxor and Colosseum, so all that good stuff. And it's really mostly just a bunch of junk here. Like, it's got all these bones here. Like I said, I don't care about getting arbitrary post 99 experience, so you're not going to catch me using these on a gilded altar. I kind of just like to build up the stacks just for the fuck of it, because why not? Few random pieces of gear here again. Incomplete moon sets, so whatever. I've got the full blue moon set, but that's stored in the master stash. I have a few random bolts here, things. Again, just random things that I don't have the full sets for. And yeah, a few leftover Yama contracts and stuff like that. I just really haven't gotten around to cleaning this part of my bank yet. And one thing I did forget to mention was the stack of onyx bolts. Let me just find that. That is there. I have about 350 mil, worth of these enchanted. And then obviously I've got a few unenchanted ones there, and then just 1,000 onyx bolt tips. I honestly don't think I'm ever going to get around to alching those unless there's something that I badly need GP for, but yeah, I think I'm happy just having the collection there just because it's kind of cool to look at. So I think that's pretty much everything from the loot tab. Next one is the potion tab. Now I don't care what anybody says about potion storage from mastering mixology. It's shit, and you have to use a different fucking banking plugin, and I just don't care about that. So I'm very well aware that potion storage exists, but yeah, I just can't be bothered doing that. So this is the pot tab. As you can see, try and keep things pretty healthy, but I guess you can tell that I do a lot of melee PVM, so the Divine Super Combat stack is always pretty low, but it's fine. I've definitely got the supplies to make more, just need to get around to it. Got just a few brews and restores, some staminers, small amount. 900 sand fuse is kind of cool. Got a few of these for when I feel like running some Inferno or Colo, but I've got the patch from both of those now, so it would really just be for fun. Got a couple of prayer pots, genuinely not too many extended anti-venoms, but it's fine. I think I've got some Araxite Fangs in the bank. And then just some more random miscellaneous shit. Stuff to make super combats. Blighted restores. Surge potions. In the future I'll probably move these to a higher slot in the bank because I do actually use them all the time. These are like the most useless potion ever. Just about. Like, I guess they're pretty nice at Doom and Nex and stuff, but I think all the tinfoil conspiracists know that these are eventually going to be used for overloads. Kappa. Just some anti-venoms. This is the cooked food tab. Once again, tell me that you work from home without telling me. That's all I'll say about that stack there. Zora, Vorkath, all that kind of stuff drops too many cooked mantas. Yeah, you're probably not wrong. Don't know where the fuck these are from. All of these, but I certainly haven't fished any dark crabs. A few. I know these are from Eclectics. Can't exactly remember where these are from. Maybe Cerberus or something like that. And you just get fucking sharks from everywhere. Obviously, this stack of Karambans is nothing compared to the raw stack, so just kind of, not much has to be said about that. And then, just some miscellaneous food. Guthix rests if I ever need them. They would mainly just be for doing Awakened Bard for fun, but again, I don't really use them that much, but it's always nice to have some just in case. And this is really just the junk tab, so I've, there's really not much structure to it. Just got all these random things in here that I will almost never use, or a few random utility items. A bunch of stuff from sailing I just ended up throwing in here. And I mean, that's pretty much all I have to say about the bank. If you have any questions or anything about that, feel free to leave those in the comments. But that's essentially just my bank. Um, so I suppose, like I mentioned before, I'm really just a pet hunt focused Iron Man. So I will kind of go through the collection log, but don't expect there to be like high numbers or anything like that, because I really only just do pet focused things or things that I feel like doing. I did try collection logging for about a week. I killed some elder chaos druids and I tried to run some monkey laps, and then I was like, what the fuck am I doing? This is not fun. So I did give clogging a try. So at least I tried it before I knocked it. So anyway, Abyssal Sire. This is a great spoon. Obviously the boss is a lot better to kill now, but prior to those updates, it was probably one of the worst bosses ever. So I'm glad that I spooned this pet. I was just a wee little piss low Iron Man. Hydra got the pet just under rate. I don't enjoy this boss, but at least it's pretty brain off and whatever, and at least I didn't go dry. I think I saw something where a guy went like 18,000 or something ridiculous for their claw on the Iron Man. That's just fucked, I would just do all with a whip at that point. Like, you could not pay me to do 18,000 of this boss. A Mox, well, another spoon here, and I actually quite enjoyed this boss because it kind of reminds me of Scarius. It's not as good as Scarius in my opinion, but it's pretty damn close. So it wasn't too bad. Kills take about 30 to 40 seconds on average, and you just kind of shred it with max gear. So it was a little bit sad that I spooned it, but that's fine. Alright, now we've got a Raxor here, and well, I don't know if much needs to be said about this. Just gonna pause for a little bit and you can have a look at the KC here. But well, essentially, I guess I'll just do a quick commentary. But yeah, Araxor came out. I went 1698 KC for this bang. This is a 1 in 600, so essentially I went almost 3 times the rate for that, which was obviously very bad. And then ever since the 1698 KC, I exclusively destroyed, and I got the pet on this KC. Yeah, definitely the most dry I've ever gone for something in this entire game. I don't have a lot of good things to say about this boss, although with that being said, I suppose a lot of my hatred about this boss is also just about the destroy mechanic for pets. Jagex, please get rid of that shit. I don't know. I don't have anything else to say, but this boss does live rent-free in my head, even today. Barrows, I did a lot of Barrows when I was a low-level Iron Man, but you could not pay me to go back today. Spoon the fuck out of this. I do need to do some more bear for the pet, but I'm not in any rush because I don't really enjoy buildy content that much. I went a bit dry for the Cerberus pet, but I'm going to say it now. This is the most fun Slayer boss in the game. With the caveat that you have a scythe and max gear, because you can do the 2-to-1 red X, which is a pretty cool method. Okay, we've got the Chaos Elemental here. That. Chaos Fanatic, once again, I don't give a shit about this. I think I just did some for the CAs and maybe to try and go for the pet. Zilly, still need to get the pet, and for a matter of fact, I need to get all of the 1 in 5,000 pets. So for those who don't know, that's all the DK's pets, all the God Wars pets, and Corp. Unfortunately, I don't have any of those. One day. Moving on, and that is a nice segue into my Corp log. So I would say that, yeah, this is pretty spoon, and the only actual item that I cared about getting from here was the Arcane. because when I top, I do the mage roll. So this is actually a highly useful item, despite what a lot of people say about all the corpse shields being useless. I don't know. This is definitely great to have. I'm very happy that I got it, so that always feels really good. We'll go back to the pet. Crazy archaeologist probably just killed this boss a bunch when I made my iron to try and get a winged crossbow. Don't care about getting any of these. Like I was saying, I don't have any DK's pets, so that's not that exciting. Had to do 50 of these for the combat achievement back in the day. Doom. So I got pretty lucky in terms of items, but I didn't actually get this cloth until 687 deep delves, which I would say is incredibly, well, maybe not incredibly, but it was pretty dry, especially because this is, in theory, the most common unique out of the three, so that kind of sucked. Doom, all in all, what I'll say about this is it is an incredibly well-designed boss that I do not enjoy killing. So, I don't know. I don't hate it, and it's not in my bottom 5 worst bosses of all time, but, I really just didn't have very much fun with this boss by the end of it. Like, after 100 deep delves, it just gets kind of old, so whatever. Duke went a little bit dry for the vet here, and this was all pre-update, and this is probably going to be a hot take, but I really liked Duke before the update. I can't say that I like it more than it is now, like where you can prep 5 kills, because I haven't gone back, but I will say that I actually really enjoyed the prep phase just because of the 1.5 ticking and everything. I just thought that was pretty cool. Like, being able to get multiple of the mushrooms and shit at once, even though you had to do that every kill. For some reason, I just enjoyed that. Didn't really care for killing the boss itself. Just the prep was kind of cool to like optimize and get down. Nothing too exciting here. Like, I actually spooned this pet around 4kc, but, it was essentially... I've just done, a lot of runs since then for combat achievements or during bingos and stuff like that, so it's fun. Colosseum. This is where I spent a very good chunk of my time this year. So I am greenlogged now. This pet here, the small heredit, I got this at 139 kc, and my Rallus was a 165 kc angle. So yeah, obviously I went pretty dry for both, but this is honestly one of my favorite pieces of content in the game. The only issues that I really have with it are the invocation system, which I think is basically everybody's issue with it. But, it is what it is. It's still a great piece of content regardless. Yeah, I think they did good. Corrupted Gauntlet. So, yeah, I obviously spooned enhanced seeds, but the young with pet I went pretty dry on. This isn't the exact KC I got it, but it was definitely around 1100, so, considering the fact that I believe it's like a 1 in 800, so I went a little bit dry, but nothing too crazy, and I enjoy CG. That's cool. Obviously nowhere near rate for this, so that's fine, but it's a bit boring. I got the giant mole here. I don't enjoy this boss, but at least it's brain off and I can just work on it. Grotesques, again, I'm a little bit dry on the pet here, but nothing too crazy, and this boss is honestly really fun now as well, with the ability to melee it with the Nally and the Chally. Pretty cool combo, and you can get some really fast kills without doing any crazy tech. Just do what you would normally do. And I believe my Chally can max 146, or something like that, which is pretty cool. This is probably the most questionable thing on my account, but as you can see, I've killed over 1800 Hispori. Little story behind this is, well, when I made the account, the only goal that I set to myself for day one was to get the farming pet. And then, so I'd always just do farm runs. They released the farming guild just a couple of months into me making my account. found out about his story and all that kind of stuff. And as I started playing the game more and realizing that the farming meta was basically to run around and do mushrooms, calquads, belladonnas, seaweed, and all that shit, that did not sound fun to me. So using Chronos seeds, I essentially just did Hespori whenever I could, which, I mean, it sounds kind of insane, and I guess it was, but it really wasn't that difficult. I could just log into mobile in the morning and just, send it, and yeah, I don't know. But eventually I got the Tangleroot pet on this KC just about a year ago, so obviously I haven't gone back, because why would I? Huey, uh, I definitely don't think I'm on rate for this pet because obviously I've done most of this in teams, but not the worst boss. Verno, some of the best content in the game. I think I got the pet at 41 KC. What else needs to be said about that? KQ. Ever since the release of Doom, where you can use the eye and do the 2-to-1 step under, where you can basically do an eye hit and then a shadow hit for every one attack that KQ does, and that method is really cool. So with KQ, really fun. Now KVD, this boss I really didn't like, but this is probably my biggest pet spoon of all time, and I could not be happier. Kraken, I just did a lot of this boss when I was a really low level Ironman, just because I thought it was fun. Ended up getting 2 pets out of it. I don't know, not much else to say there. You won't catch me at Kraken unless I'm doing a bingo now. 3, again, I mean, I've been pretty spoon with the items, but I'm nowhere near close to the pet rate. But, I'll just keep chipping away at that over time. Same with Krill. Levi, yeah, I'm not a fan of this boss at all, so I was lucky to get the pet before rate. Happy about that. Moons, only thing I care about is getting these Blue Moon Tassies, because I do need them for Huey, just for the tail, because the full Blood Moon set is best in slot there. Next, yeah, this log is pretty spoon. I don't have much else to say about that. Nightmare, as I was saying before, probably my favorite, well, one of my favorite bosses of all time in this game, specifically the Fasani's version. In terms of all the items I'm missing, I don't really give a fuck, but I just like the boss, so inevitably I'll go back and probably get those someday. Omor, I should only have 5 KC here, because that's all you need for the CAs, but I think I messed one of them up and had to do another kill, so I've got 6. Another pretty big spoon here. Yeah, really not much to say about Musfa. Royal Titans, honestly a really good boss. I was actually upset to spoon the pet here, which I think I got it just shy of 300 KC, because I actually thought it was really fun. Well, I thought it was really fun, but not fun enough that I'd want to do it again with no reason, so I've obviously done a bit during bingos and stuff like that since getting the pet, but it's whatever. Seracnus, honestly, amazingly fun boss for how mid-game it is. I do think that the Iranian boots took a lot of the fun out of this boss, and the best iteration was when you could use the Ring of Stone tech, and you actually had to be very intentional about when you clicked it to not lose ticks and all that stuff, so I am kind of sad that the Iranian boots came out and basically ruined everything that was fun about Seracnus, but this all, I did all this KC well before Araxor came out, so yeah, still, one of the best bosses in the game in terms of mid-game content. I'll go back to Scorpia, but this boss kind of stinks. Scarius, I think this is probably the best, and probably will always be the best, sort of early to mid-game boss in the game. I really enjoy Scarius. Obviously, it's not made for players like me, but it's just, I don't know, it's just very satisfying to do. Constantly hit big numbers and shred them with the scythe. It's really good, and obviously it's great at introducing players into the game as well, so it's got that going for it too. If I end up going giant the bet here, that's fine. It drops medium clues, and I can use those for yeah, masters. Shellbane, not really engaged with this boss too much. Seems okay. It's kind of like a Mox and Scarius, but Scarius is king. Tizo, whatever. Don't have the Temperos pet yet, but it would be cool to get that. Thermi, it's I did go quite dry on this pet as well. Rate is 1 in 3,000, I believe, so a bit over double the rate. Doesn't really matter because this was like a full AFK cock in hand sort of boss during work. Mardorvis, this is one of the pets I got this year. Very happy about that one. 3,200. I think it was, let me check, 3,000, oh, 32 KC. I got this, so a bit overrated, but again, I think Bard is really fun, so I was not too upset about this. Ben and Artist and Spindle. Yeah, I'm not really too about that. I mean, I'll just get around to it when I do. That's fine. This is the only like traditional like one of the 3 Wildy bosses that I actually grinded out. I just parked my ass at Calvarion during leagues a couple of years ago because I don't play leagues, and I just sweated out the Vedion pet. Spoon that was rewarded. That's cool. Vorkath again, I'm creeping up to the rate, but I really enjoyed Vorkath, so yeah, I suppose if I go a little bit dry here, that's fine. Don't care about getting this thing, as far as I know, that's useless. Whisperer, again, bet that I spooned pretty hard, so that's nice. I got the Winter Tot pet this year. I believe, I mean, this is incredibly spooned. I think I don't even know the rate for this. It's either 5,000 or 8,000 rewards or something. Like, either way, I got really lucky. I just learnt the solo Winter Tot method, and then pretty much the next day I got the pet, so pretty undeserved, but I didn't even hate the content either. It was actually pretty chill, especially with those recent changes they made, so it's fine. Yama, obviously I ended up just making my Oathblade legs, but I don't have those on the collection log, and I don't have the pet. Still need to go back for that someday. Much the same as Volcano. I don't mind this, and I haven't actually sent any since they made the changes to make it a lot faster, but that's something that I'll just chip away at when I can be bothered. Only thing I'm missing from Zora is a Magma Mutagen, so that's whatever. That's pretty much everything from bosses. Chambers log is, yeah, you could say that's pretty spooned. That's all I'll say about that. Tob, I mean, I could do an entire ramble about how Tob is the best raid and always will be, but, you know, everybody, well, many people have said that, so I'll spare you the details, but I enjoy Tob, and it's one of the only pieces of content that I'll do, even though it has basically 0 benefit to my account, just because I like it. And I don't have another, I don't have a main or anything to play on. And TOA, I was also pretty lucky here, I suppose, grand scheme of things, so I guess that's kind of cool. I guess I'll quickly go through. I don't really give a shit about clues to like about the majority of clues. Like I only care about masters, so I guess I'll just kind of go through what I've got here. Well, the only thing I really want is like a second. Well, is a Bando's Godsword Ornament kit just to finish off the set. But as you can see, I've gotten a lot of occult torture kits and shit like that. Just been doing quite a lot of these. Nothing too crazy in there. Other thing that I think is worth mentioning here is the rare sort of master tab, which just includes all the items. Yeah, I don't really feel like going through anything in here because there's not much that like I don't really engage in many of these mini games because I'm not a clogger. like I've done a bit of LMS and I bought a couple of things in that week where I thought I was going to clog, but for the most part, this is just something that I used to do for fun, just for the hell of killing somebody, and, all that kind of stuff. So that's LMS for you. But nowadays, it's not really that fun. Um, I don't know. There's really not that much in here that excites me, so don't really. Well, I got the Soul Wars pet this year. I guess that was kind of nice. 16k zeal though, so I did go a bit dry. It should be a 1 in 400, I believe. Just go through the things here which I think are relevant. So this is the pets tab. So as I'm saying, I'm currently sitting at 40 pets. The new ones that I got this year were it's Royal Titans, 298 KC, Small Heredit at 139. I got the Doom pet at my first of 4 at 45 deep delves, a Mox at 776, Araxor at 5936, Winter Todd at 1824 crates, Soul Wars pet at 16k seal, and the Vard at 32 KC. Is there anything else that I think is relevant here? Not really. Remnants, it's not that exciting. Cool. Well, a few random things from sailing. I should probably get around to finishing this, but I just don't really care about the majority of this stuff, so I will not bore everyone with going through it. But that is pretty much the Ramble in the Bank video. If you're listening for this whole time, then thank you. And if you have any other questions about any of the stuff you saw, then feel free to just leave a comment, and I'm happy to answer the question for you. But I'll stop talking now. Have a great day or a great night wherever you are, and peace.